Here we go. We're back. New School Sensei. I'm your host, Lance Douglas. We have Ken Douglas here, the Chainsaw King. He reports that he's hearing a chainsaw in the background, but I can't hear nothing, Ken.
Yeah, he was going pretty hard. He was going pretty hard just before, but I just had to put a double leg on him, and he's all good now.
And I've got my dog desperately asking for pats, like while I'm talking to you guys.
That's it. And now we've also got Jerome Maitland, our most popular guest. He's back by popular demand. This topic, Ken requested it. So normally podcasters will do their shows for their guests and for their viewership. But this one's purely much for Ken. So Big Boy Jiu Jitsu. How do you teach the girthier grappler? We're not talking about grapplers 85 kilos, 90, 100 kilos. For me, they're not. A 100-kilo person is not big. Even 110, that's not big.
Come on, man.
We're talking 120. We got guys at the gym, Jez, that are 130, 140. If we put them on the scale, I would not be surprised if they were 150.
You get the infinity symbol.
Proper big boys.
An infinity symbol on the scale. Yeah.
Even, to be honest, Jez, they make you look really small.
Yeah.
So we're talking proper big boy jiu-jitsu. Ken has got a funny story to start, just how he's trying to explain this to his wife. So Ken,
all right,
give us that story.
And also just to riff on that with Lance, if their first name is Big, if you call them Big Nick, Big Jez,
or even if you call them, sometimes I go Little Nick, just to change it up.
Curveball.
Yeah, so this is a really cool topic for me because I've obviously got quite a few students who start with their first name is Big. So, and I'm only an 85-kilo grappler.
That's nothing.
It is. The scale is going a little bit higher every day. Every kid I have, goes.
You got there one day, man.
Yeah. Essentially, I was talking to my wife about this in the car, and I've said, like, we got this guest in, and I really want to learn about Big Boy Jiu Jitsu, and she's like, you got to be careful talking about that. You have to be a bit sensitive.
Why?
But I reckon in Jiu Jitsu, there's actually no shame in being big. It's actually like something that you want to be. I feel like once you train enough, you're like, man, dude, I feel like for me, if I was 120 kilos, I'd be a 3rd-degree black belt. True? Like, I feel like I would have got that black belt earlier.
We'll just do a face swap. We'll do. I'd like to be 85.
So there's obviously this topic. For the person outside of martial arts, it might seem a little bit shamey or that, but we do it with all due respect. And it's actually, for us, it's a good thing to be big on the mats. To train as a bigger grappler, it doesn't mean that you have to be actually big. Like, there's smaller guys that feel big.
They play a big man game.
100%. Like, even me, as an older grappler, I don't really want to play guard that much these days. I just want to stay on top. You know what I mean? And just smother people and smash people. Like, my style, it's not a big boy game, but I call it like a wet blanket game. So it's a little bit different because I haven't got the weight, but I've got the sweat and that surface area. I can cover them with surface area. You know what I mean? So that explains to the people that are listening at home, Lance?
Yeah, and just another quick one, because we're doing it with all due respect. For me, whenever I have an athlete who is over 120, 130, 140 kilos, I actually give them the most coaching because the bigger athletes are your most important students because they force the other students to actually use jiu-jitsu. So that's why, whenever I have an athlete who's, on the bigger side, they're getting the most attention from me because they're going to force my little guys. If you're only 90, 95 kilos, you're little. As far as I'm concerned, and the big boy or big girl, could be all big, whatever, could be anything. They're going to force the smaller athlete to actually be efficient, use leverage, and use timing.
And Lance, also, we have to be friendlier because if we teach them a little bit, they're probably going to start smashing us soon. Like, if we be real, someone 120, all they got to do is grab my forearm, twist. They could probably get a tap. True. Interlock fingers.
Like a Chinese burn.
They get interlock fingers, they can tap. Even like Big Jez, if you go side control, you've tapped me just from side control pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have to respect them too.
Oh, And then we'll start with story time. Jez, before the podcast, had a great big boy story all the way from the west, from Tullamarine. So hit us with that story, because that was just getting juicy.
Oh, okay. So I was telling the guys before about, because we're talking about gradings and like how hectic the black belt grading is, and I was saying during my grading, at some point I had like 4 or 5 people on me at once, and someone, and to this day, and I swear I do not know who this is, thought it'd be funny to, during my grading for jiu-jitsu, which is a non-striking sport, soccer kick me in the head. And it's bad. Let's just all agree that's horrible. You should never do that. And I just looked up and I didn't see who it was, but they were turned around and they had both arms up in the air celebrating. Like a horror movie, I've grabbed his leg with one hand, the one hand I had free, and I was like just dragging this person in, and they were clawing the mat. And they were screaming, someone jump him, and I just kept dragging this person underneath me. And then I had, I think, 5, 6 people on me at once, and because I was in a turtle, I have a particularly strong base. No one could actually turn me over as I'm dragging this person into the abyss, and they were like, it was a cowardly scream. And I'll go, and then it took, I think, a black belt, John Walkin, to put me in a heel hook to kind of get me to let go of this person, and they ran away. And it's like, I'm a nice guy, okay? To take me to that point, like, and I never to this day found out who that person was, and they're still in hiding. All right,
Maybe they quit jiu-jitsu after that. They knew.
they should. Yeah, that's my crazy story.
Boom. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes, like into the nitty gritty, particularly to help out Ken, help out me, any coach really. If you got someone, not talking 85, 90, 95, 100, 105, 110, easy. Jiu-jitsu's easy, but 120. How are you going to run the class? Because for Kenny was saying, it almost feels like he's running 2 classes. Isn't that right, Ken?
That's it, man. I feel like I'm running 2 classes and like one of them's pretty bad. Because for me, I do try and roll like a bigger guy, but a lot of it's probably the same with most coaches. You teach what you know and what you're good at. Yeah. And
Yep.
I'm pretty flexible in the hips. And I found bigger guys struggle to insert their legs in different positions, even if we're in like if we're in like an armbar position, yeah. And if you want to insert like one of your legs and go for a triangle from there, just trying to insert that leg, they haven't got the hip mobility, or maybe the leg's just thicker.
Mm.
So you just got to play with a lot of those sort of things. So yeah, it'd be good to get any sort of tips, Jez, about teaching bigger guys.
So so just a question though. So when you're teaching your techniques, like what kind of techniques, like let's just say let's say for an example, you're teaching let's say a mounted armbar, for example. I mean, you should
Did
teach.
that last night?
You done? So what's the you said you're teaching 2 people. Like what's the variant that you're finding that's difficult with a bigger guy showing something like that?
I feel like a lot of my jiu-jitsu is I want to stay on top. I don't want to lose position. And a lot of it is very technical,
Yeah.
especially your breaking grips with the armbar, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going like it's pretty technical. Whereas I feel like a bigger guy, they don't need to be as technical. You know what I mean? So they could probably get the job done a little bit quicker, and they've
Okay.
got more weight on them.
Okay. So
And I feel like, especially like the mounted armbar, get into the position. Like, I didn't really realize it, but when I was thinking back on it, there's a lot of little movements you have to do. You know, you got to like move your hip this way, then move your hip this way. You know, you got to get to the S mount, which is it might be like, if there's a 120 guy on top of your mount and they get the S mount, they pull your head up, you probably just tap them there, to be honest.
yeah.
You know, like that's like, it's almost like a neck crank, like all your 120 kilos on your chest and your neck is pulled forwards.
Mm-hmm.
Just all that sort of stuff. And then even when you're in the armbar position, I guess the bigger guy, it's harder for you to stack them, you know, so they've got more weight on those legs pushing your face down. Whereas if I'm in the armbar position, I'm very mindful of getting stacked. I've got one arm in and I've got one hand on the ground, turning my hips because I don't want to get stacked.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So that's my sort of mindset when I'm showing that sort of technique and teaching the guys.
So from what I'm hearing, from what you're saying is you're taking a very, very technical approach on, and like a step-by-step approach in teaching the technique. My advice to you, and I'm assuming these are white belts that you're talking about. Is it? And I could be wrong.
We actually got a purple belt.
A purple belt as
True
well.
purple belt. It's actually like 150.
Yeah.
He's a guy, literally, he gets any grip,
Yeah.
and if he's squeezed, I'll probably tap, to be honest.
I think okay. So my advice initially is, number one, I believe you should have a basic showing of what the technique, the finish is. I think I talked about this last time. Start at the finish line, or that Google Maps theory that I talked about. You understand where the destination is. I like to reverse engineer. So for me, my advice to you would be, show people what the finish is. So, and if you show the end of the armbar, the mechanics of that, well, at that point, the heavyweight isn't going to be on your chest, because the weight and the risk and the things like that, they've got to understand how they're going to get to that position. Does that make sense? So I would suggest to you, my advice, especially when you have a wider range of body types, physical attributes, whether they be flexibility, height, weight, strength and things like that. Like these things are very important, but it's important that the goal is the same. Do you know what I mean? So my advice to you would be, show what the finish is. And it's also important for you, like you say, you fight like a big guy. This is good, but it's also important to show different ways of the different paths and the different journeys for people finishing these positions. So we understand what the destination is. We understand where we're starting from. So the start and finish. But you're just going to have to accept that based on people's attributes, they can either like skip a step, they would have to maybe take an extra step. And those pathways in between, it's really, really good. So my advice to you is actually start at the end. Okay, guys, this is the armbar. Don't show from the mount, show the finishing mechanics. So the leg across the neck and across the chest, pinch your knees together, depending on, obviously, I'm generally using it as an example. The hand controls on the armbar. Cool. Daff, go to bed. There we go. I believe that what you got to understand is like, no matter what the level is, understanding where the finish line is important. So in that very specific example, if you're worried about teaching big boys and stuff like that, I would suggest start at the finish line and actually have people work that mechanic first, just the finishing mechanic. And what you can do is I would actually mix up the weights and the sizes now there's technique training, drilling training, and sparring, right? What we're talking about now is technique. Now, in the technique, it's controlled. There's no resistance. There's no defense. It's not time for drilling. You need to separate the drilling from teaching technique. When you're teaching that finish, you're not looking for a big thing. I would do it very slow. And I would also have a culture in my gym of not ripping things on when we're in that mode. Does that make sense? Because there's no reason. You're going to win. So what are you winning? A win that's automatic. It's very silly. And it's like, and I'll pull guys up if it's ever an issue. It's very rarely an issue. Probably in my 15 years of teaching, maybe a handful of guys that's been an issue. And that's it, over time. But I think for yourself, my advice would be start at the end. And then what you got to do is, then go back a step. All right. So we understand what we're doing on the finish. So this is the mechanic where we're working it from out now. Now, I would, as a coach, when they're breaking up and doing their technique, I would ask questions to them in those individual groups. I love the group of 3. I think 3 is a great number. Four is fine. 2 is fine. 1, it's fine. My magic number is 3. I love it because it's one person doing it, one person feeling it, and then one person watching it. So there's the 3, that 3 points of view. It's like, okay, no, cool. Okay, this is what I'm not doing because I can see that they're doing this step, or oh, that's why that's working because I'm feeling it when you're in the submission. And then when you're doing it, it's not quite working. Those 3 elements of being outside, in it, and then doing it is very, very important. And I would just really keep the technique as simple as possible. And I also encourage my guys to add their flair or their approach to something and figure it out independently as well. Like I said a long way about it, but the physicality, your attributes are so important. And I think sometimes in BJJ culture, it's kind of, as I said, you're not hated or disrespected, but you're kind of, as a big person, you're kind of downplayed. Oh, you're using size, you're using strength. This is a very common thing to hear in a jiu-jitsu gym. Oh, they only work because you're big. You know, I cop that a lot coming up, and you believe it. And the thing is too, it's like, yes, there is a factor of that. And I've learned over time that, yeah, so what? Like, I'm meant to, like, I'm supposed, when you think about yourselves, like, if you roll a bigger guy, you're using leverage, you're using weight. If you weren't using leverage and weight, you would just get thrown off, right? So, because in that particular attribute, I have an advantage because I'm bigger than you. And vice versa, you were talking before about flexibility. I don't have that flexibility in my legs. That's a weapon. Sometimes it's easier to like fight someone that has a lack of flexibility, but it's also like, I don't want to hinder someone's attributes, if that makes sense. So it's very important, again, it's important to identify, like, you got to strip away the attribute, understand that the finish line is the most important thing to learn. Where am I going? Understand what the finish is, and then we backstep from that. Yeah, and so yeah, that's kind of my advice on that.
Okay, that's good. Very good tips. What's your thoughts, Lance? Lance is our teaching specialist.
Mm-hmm.
I know about teaching specialists, but yeah, you get a lot of other coaches will say, you know, don't use your strength, don't use your weight, get the technique, the biomechanics, get it right. I'm of the opinion more like you, Jez, like, if I'm long and lanky, I'm going to use it.
100%.
If I'm flexible, I'm going to use it. If I'm 150 kilos, I'm going to use it. It'd be telling a yoga person who comes in, he's done 20 years of yoga, don't use your flexibility. I want you to be real stiff. You know, of course they're going to be doing birimbolos, inverting, you know, spinning into positions. So you got to use what you got.
100%.
And for the big boys, you know, they've got that size. So I got a question for you, Jez. Now, what type of positions are you favoring with our friends that are over 120 kilos? Submissions, strategy, like what type of things are you more favoring for them?
Okay, so this is a very important factor. I don't look as much as the physical weight of someone as opposed to their frame. If that makes sense? So you can have a guy that's very stout, very broad, very barreled, that's about 90 kilos. Honestly, even 70 kilos. You get someone that was a machine that was really, really strong and short was Digi, Michael Digi. You remember back in the day, Michael Digi. Now, Michael Digi won the Open, and he's like very short, but he had. But the thing is that he played, like, he can play a very good like a knee slice sort of game because his legs were short. I feel like you should cater to the attributes of the person. So we're talking like a heavyweight right now. If they've got long legs, I would encourage them to go to mount because they can get their knee. My whole thing with mount, and I say this to my students, no matter what weight they are, if you can get your knees to the mat comfortably, then you should be playing mount. If your knees aren't getting to the mat, I don't think it's a good idea to have that as a stationary position. I just don't like. S mount is different because it's attacking. So if you're in that mount, it shouldn't be a stationary position. Definitely side control and top half guard is definitely something I would recommend to a lot of big guys. And I think half guard is the greatest position in jiu-jitsu because it's the most 50-50. It's the most relatable across the board for everyone. Of course, there's different styles, different takes, different moves that you can do based on your attributes, your frame, and your size. But I think the half guard is such a good place. But look, if someone had a similar frame to me, for example, I'm not super short, but I'm not like crazy tall, but I'm very broad. And in particularly, I've got a short kind of midsection. So side control is definitely my and Ken, you said before I tapped you out with just positionally with side control because I understand the leverage of what I'm doing. I teach leverage across the board. Now, definitely, there are some people that can't do the thing I do in side control. Like, as you said, that pressure I can create in side control because of my leverage and my weight. And it's more my leverage, but add the fact that I'm not a little person on top of that. You're getting a double shot, of the acai. And, you know what I mean? And,
Boy, here we go. Bit of acai.
um,
Perfect.
it's more of it's definitely more of the, understanding positional control. Like I've got some heavyweights in my gym. They're about 95, 97 kilos. I consider that a heavyweight, but they're very tall. And like teaching that side control, like not in a funny way, but their butts up in the air because they're so tall. Like, you know what I mean? And my theory on side control or top pressure is your butt should sit lower than your chest. So like if you're like that kind of angle, it's not a good thing as far as pressure if your hips are higher than your back, if that makes sense, because you're creating space for a guard retention. You also lose your center of gravity because you've got no weight in your midsection, and I feel like that's the time you're going to get turned over. If your hips are high in the air, even if you think like judo or takedown, we're always going under the hips and lifting the hips. So if you can't keep your pressure low, then I don't suggest that. But you should be comfortable in a lot of positions. You're saying, okay, as a big person, I teach half guard off my back. My favorite guard is half guard, you know, so I like going into deep half guard. I have a very
Turtle.
yeah, turtle guard. I do. I love turtle. I'm trying to get away from it because I've got a gimmick of a panda, so it's not the same thing. So, but no, turtle guard's great. But of course, there's all the risks. But I'm okay. So that's a great example. I've got a very thick neck and a short neck. My throat's not at risk of being tapped. But say you fellas, you guys have got, you know, skinny long necks. If you play in turtle, if you're not being careful, I can teach you what to do, but the risk of you getting caught in a headlock is higher. So play to your attributes, play to your size, play to your frame. If you're flexible, be flexible. I've got a guy in my gym named Nicholas Liu who looks nothing like anyone else in resilience because everyone in resilience looks like a caveman. Insanely flexible, rubber guard player, puts his leg behind his head, and like he does things that I just can't physically do. Do I say, oh no, don't do that because I can't do that? You know, like, no, it's silly. I encourage these guys to be inventive, innovating, but also don't be too egotistical and thinking if it's not working, you need to accept that it's not going to work. I think you need to play to that. But again, I sound like I'm going off topic, but like we're talking about like positional stuff. The basic principles of every position you can teach to anyone. And I'm a big believer in simple, clear, basic side control, head and arm position, you know, like a basic cross face. Everyone should know how to do that. And then from there, you get guys that can do some weird stuff. Like, you know what I mean? It's like cool stuff. And the fact that you said, like, I think it's a great weapon I can tap you out in side control with a bear hug. Like, most people can't do that. It's like, cool. But then the attitude is you only get that because you're big. And they're like, damn right. You can't do it. Like, get over it. Like, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. And you guys are attested. I don't think I've injured either of you in a roll. What you don't want to put into and I'm saying specifically as a big person, like, and I can relate to it. You don't ever want to break the confidence of someone when they come in. No, you did that because of this. Like, you're doing the wrong thing. If you got a tap, you got a tap. You should encourage that. Like, I think there's this culture, and like, you see any videos online, it's never the big guy beating the little guy, right? If you see those shorts and stuff like that, it's never that. It's always, you know, oh, the 70 kilo guy beats the 120 kilo guy. Now, I don't brag about beating someone smaller than me, but I've beaten guys that are smaller than me. But I think the big thing is like jiu-jitsu culture has definitely been because of Royce Gracie fighting the first UFC. He was like 100 pounds lighter than every other person and he ran through everyone. We're in a different time. People know what jiu-jitsu is now. Yeah. So if you have the same skill level, the same knowledge, what's the different factor? It's attributes, physical attributes. Yeah, that's it. Strong guy. But it's the attributes are very important. Flexibility is important. Timing's important. Dynamicness, explosiveness. You know, like all these are incredible factors, and I'm not and I've learned this over time, and I feel like if I have an explosive guy, I train him to be an explosive person. If I have a flexible guy, I let him be flexible. Don't try to take away what makes them good. And that being said, but I also encourage my guys to be well versed in areas that not necessarily they're good at. So as simple as that anyone can relate to, if you're a big person, you don't want to be on your back. So you should become comfortable with that. My ground game off my back, which I didn't use in the fight because I didn't need to because I ended up on top. But the reality is like I play half guard, dogfight, half guard. And if they pass my guard, I turtle. So they don't get the points for the pass. And then I wrestle from there. So basically I wrestle up off my back. And a lot of people, like now you see a lot of BT New Wave. And again, this was happening before I did it. I'm only using them as an example. But these guys, like some of those guys aren't big, but they do. They wrestle up. So why is it so bad when I do it? Because I'm bigger than you. That when I'm wrestling up, you shouldn't. And I said some gyms are like, it's kind of like a insecurity thing, but you're like, you try to downplay someone's hard work, hard effort. Like, man, like it's harder for a big guy, like in a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong, the leverage, the control, and stuff like that. But if you get put on your back, you fatigue faster. Like there were again, I'm not like trying to play the victim, but I'm like, you should never downplay anyone. I shouldn't downplay you guys. Oh, you didn't beat me, just do it the way I do it. Well, no, I'm bigger than you. I've got 40 kilos on you. Like, but it's a silly mindset. You should teach people to trust their attributes. And I think how do I put it? Like I'm a massive anime fan, you know, and everyone's got their finishing move, their secret technique and stuff like that. I almost like tell my guys like, hey, you've got this move that they do so well. And I do the private training and PTing as well. And I've got a student named Mel who has the most ridiculous half Nelson bow and arrow choke. And she's this little, like she's little, but like she rolls the guys. And of course, look, again, physicality. If she rolls someone bigger or more explosive than her, it's going to be very hard to get in that position. But if she gets that half Nelson bow and arrow, she's like on the verge of putting people to sleep because of her physicality, her frame. It's just a perfect move for her. And you need to find those perfect moves. And that's the exciting journey. Like, I'm sure you guys have your moves that you love so much, like the particular moves, because when they happen, they feel amazing. It's like, this feels right. This feels good. And that excitement, that journey is like, man, I never want to take that away from anyone. I've got guys that love baseball bat chokes. Now they're high risk, right? You're giving up your back. You're giving up a whole lot. But they tap multiple people with them. I mean, Peter Beluga made a career of baseball bat choking every single person to this day. You know what I mean? Like,
Got me in my grading a couple times. I got to actually bring him in. He got me with some really weird like gi chokes. So I got to get him in for a seminar.
yeah. And again, he has the benefit of, and his technique is amazing, and he's shown me what he does, and it's great. But there's also a physicality. His grips are incredible, and it's not just strength. It's like they go and they fit in the right spot. And as far as the puzzle of jiu-jitsu, that's the perfect piece, and he's got that perfect piece. He's had me in that a couple of times, and I've got to be honest, like I'm like flying out of that position. I'm scrambling, like I don't want it, because if he locks me down, I'm done. Like, and all the respect to him for that. But what do I say that? Oh, you're just strong. You're just really big and strong, and like in your grips. It's like, it's such a, if you have that mindset, the reason you lost was because of this, it's going to really hinder you. And as a coach, you need to teach that out of people. You need to say, hey, man, you know that that's coming. Man, that's cool. That's a good, and you know what? It helps you if you know that that's the dangerous thing that's coming at you, then you can recognize that in a person. It helps you so much in like rolling people you don't know, because then you see it. Like, striking, you know, someone's got explosive, you know, powerful hands, powerful punches. You can see it in someone. It's like, okay, cool. Instead of like fearing it, be aware of it and then work around it. I know we're not talking about it again, but my last fight, the guy that I was fighting was super strong, jacked in the chest, like big arms. So the whole thing was neutralizing those weapons that he had right at the start of the fight. So yeah, again, you know, long way about it. Like, I don't think you should change what you teach. I think you should teach everyone. obviously, if someone can't do rubber guard or like a go-go platter or something because of their physicality, then don't do it. Tell them not to do it. If they are really that keen on learning it, then I get excited about that. I'm like, okay, cool. If you really want to do this, then you need to work on your flexibility. You need to work on your physicality. You need to work on the dexterity of your legs. When you have people that are excited about a move that they can't do, when they get it and they've put in those reps and they've put in that thing and then they start landing it, that's exciting. If you get Alex Hunga from M98, he's a guard player and he's enormous. He's got so flexible guard. It's so cool to watch him, because it made sense to him. It's like, okay, cool. I'm a big guy, and then he developed that flexibility, the dexterity.
Makes
and
sense to his dad. It's so
Yeah.
flexible.
Exactly. They love that game. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't believe in taking away physicality. You got guys at Southeast BJJ, all Islander guys, man. They're all strong. You should teach them to be well versed in the areas, but why take away their biggest weapon when they should use it? I'm not saying there's all this debate at the moment about, TRT and steroids and stuff like that in jiu-jitsu. And look, I'm not for it, but I also understand, like, if you're living day to day, this is a very physical sport, right? If you need to heal, man, I've got injuries galore. I've got a busted elbow and a busted shoulder at the moment, and I don't want to fight, and I'm teaching the rest of the time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm injured. I've got bad knees. I've got bad back. It's all part of the journey. Now, I don't use it, but I can understand why someone would. Like, but I don't like the idea of using it for the sake of, like, again, I believe in your attributes and stuff like that. I look at someone like Marcelo Garcia. Does he make excuses when he fights someone? Now, he beat who's it? Rico Rodriguez, who was a heavyweight champ of the UFC, right? Tapped him. And he had to slam and stuff like that. I don't look at that fight and, like, go, and like, he was just that good. Like, he didn't make those excuses. Here I am saying, like, people only post little guys beating big guys, but that was a great example of, like, understanding attributes. Now, Marcelo is very strong, in particular in his hands. If you ever look at his frame, he's got massive forearms, he's got big hands for a very little person, and he's got a very long torso but short legs. His whole game is knee slicing, single X, and obviously his guillotine the Marcelo guillotine is unbelievable, right? He's one of the greatest of all time. He uses his attributes, and it's important to not diminish attributes. If you get to a point where if someone's game becomes stagnant because they're just purely relying on their strength and size and they're not progressing, well, then you got to say, hey, listen, let's change this up. But it has nothing. Let's try a different technique. And they're like, oh, that's hard because I'm on my back and I don't like being on my neck. Okay, well, you can get better at this. Start rolling on your neck, get a little bit more comfortable. You should encourage people to evolve and change their style and develop. And for me, like I said, I've got some guard players in my gym. I play half guard, but like, we've got different diversity, which again, you look at AET. Ninos has got diversity there. It's not like a one style fits all. And I'm finding that a lot of the gym now aren't like, it's not like the old school, everyone has the same style and stuff like that. It's good people are evolving. It's good that people are merging wrestling, sambo, judo, all these other elements of their game into it. It's like, I just think there's, if you downplay someone because of their physicality or something like that, number one, you hurt them. You downplay it. I think there was a period at AET, like when I was a white, I think I was a blue belt, I think, and guys were just saying, "I just beat you because he's bigger than you," and it got to me, and in the sense of, like, I didn't think I was as good as what I was, but then we had a couple of Islanders join the gym, so I had Big Jace and stuff, and I was throwing Big Jace around. And Jace at the time, before he got serious and Jason was like 150 kilos, and I was throwing him around. And then it's like, in that moment, it was like, I'm actually doing the right technique. It's working on people bigger than me. It's like, okay, cool. And then someone tried to say it again. I go, hey, listen, dude, I'm doing it to guys bigger than me. I don't know what your excuse is. So it's like, and then it changes the thing. And then I found a lot of those people who aren't a part of, the gym anymore, they kind of faded away and disappeared because they always had an excuse for why they didn't win. Now, of course, if I fight someone 60 kilos and I'm 120 kilos, I'm going to have a huge advantage. But I also have been taught not to roughhouse people. You know what I mean? And that's the responsibility of Ninos as my coach. And he taught me that. And then now, in kind, it's my responsibility to teach good etiquette, right? And it falls on you as the coach of your gym. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's my little rant.
I like it, Jez. Do you have any examples of fighters, bigger fighters that our guys should be watching, like, the 120 kilo guys? And even, do you have an example where the big guy beats up a really good little guy? So we can see the strategy, big guy versus little guy. So sort of two questions there.
Okay. I thought, I think if you want to look at MMA, I'm a huge fan of Daniel Cormier going up to heavyweight and like hurling these guys around. And he was fat, like really, like when he fought at heavyweight. When he was at light heavyweight, I mean, he got a bit leaner and stuff like that, but he was always short. Like he was 5'10", and these guys are all naturally bigger. And I mean, I think that's someone I would look at. And someone that's big, that's super impressive and like just impressive to watch. I mean, Hodger Gracie, greatest of all time. I think Hodger's a great example. Now, Hodger's super technical. Very, like I said, a very basic style game. Not simple, because I don't like that word, but a very, really basic, old school game. And he would beat these guys because the thing is, I think Hodger is a great person to watch. I think, yeah, I think that's a really great example. I wouldn't call Hodger a very dynamic person, a very explosive person, but he just kind of wrote, and you could say that he was super technical. I think that's a great example of someone that was like amazing. You know what I mean? And he wasn't the biggest guy either. Like he was heavy and he was a big guy, very tall, but he wasn't like the heaviest guy out there. But he was a great jiu-jitsu guy to watch. Fabricio Verdum is an amazing, amazing grappler that was really big. I mean, I kind of lean towards, for me when I watch, like I feel like dynamic fighters have a time frame, explosive dynamic fighters, a window where I look at guys that I don't know, and it's not a favoritism thing. I just find that the longevity of a guy that can be really kind of a grindy style and like really pass their way through and stuff. I mean, Gordon's a great example of that. He's never been a dynamic fighter. Gordon Ryan. He's very, very just controlled.
He's almost retired now, isn't he?
I wouldn't call him explosive though. I wouldn't call him like, I would say like a Rotolo.
Like a Wagner Hosh or a Cyborg. Those boys.
Yeah, those. I mean, yeah, had. But like you look at like the Rotolo brothers and the Thackett's and stuff like that. To be fair, those guys are lighter. They're naturally going to be more explosive. I just don't see the longevity in explosive fighters. I find that the guys I like to watch are very methodical, very slow. And don't get me wrong, there's time and place for being explosive, but they're the guys I kind of look out for. I mean, yeah, I definitely say the legends of the sport, but you can sit there and say, and like I said, I never want to downplay anyone that's like, I mean, Demetrius Johnson beating that heavyweight at the brown belt at the World Masters, and that was so impressive. Like, you don't want to downplay that, but he also, to me, he doesn't make excuses. You know what I mean? If he lost, he lost. He's not going to sit there and say, well, I only lost because he's bigger than me. No, it's like you go in there, the attributes are the attributes, and he was very strategic. He circled out, and he was looking for those low ankle picks. He wasn't looking for like driving on heavy doubles into his hips. That's a great strategy. That's what you want to teach your guys. I teach all my little guys, and again, I know we come back to the big boy topic, but I teach them to ankle pick and duck under to the back. Don't fight a heavyweight in front. And in counter to that, my heavyweights, I teach them to over under clench and collar tie. Use your weight, use your leverage, use the attributes that you've got. So, yeah, I think, yeah, Hodjo is definitely one that I am a massive, massive fan of and super respect. And like, even to this day, he's a veteran now, but I mean, he came back and beat Buchecha, right? I think we talked about that last time. Like, Buchecha was the king at that point. But I feel
him, didn't he?
Yeah, no, bow and arrow. Got on his back and bow and arrow choke, and it was nasty. It was a very, very nasty choke.
I'm thinking of their first match. I think Buchecha versed him in like Metamoris, and I think Hodges survived an armbar, didn't he?
Yeah. It ended up being a draw because that was the format of the thing. But yeah,
and then he came back and finished him.
Yeah.
How about the late fighter Orlando Sanchez, the
Yeah.
Gracie Barra guy, 80-16 champion?
Oh,
Thoughts on him?
I look at someone like Orlando Sanchez, who was very short, and he didn't have a lot of stuff that he could do with his throwing because he was very broad, like very very wide hips, insanely strong, right? A unit. But he would take down and he would knee slice, and he's like, and just aggressive passing. He was great to watch. But then you take someone like when he first Nicky Rod, and Nicky Rod kept snapping him down and playing to his height. That became an attribute fight, right? Nicky Rod's super dynamic. I look at that, and I don't take anything away from dynamic fighters, but I mean, I look at Nicky Rod and like very explosive, very dynamic. The problem with, I feel like this is my personal opinion. When you're being dynamic and explosive, you're gambling. Like, I just think if you can shut down and control, you're being a little bit more thing. And of course, Nicky Rod would run through me in 10 seconds. Like, I'm not taking anything away from him, but I look at, like, he just lost to Victor Hugo, right? Like, and Victor Hugo is a machine, but then Victor Hugo lost to, Lucas Kennard, and it's just there's jiu-jitsu math doesn't work. If you beat this guy, you beat this guy. No, and that's why I love jiu-jitsu, because styles make fights, right? I would struggle with someone that's like really, really little. Um, do you know, like, honestly, someone that I've always struggled to roll, and I am bigger than him, but like he gives me a hard time than say bigger guy. It's like Jamie Murray, for example. He's really short, and I give a lot of credit. And like I said, I don't like when I roll respectfully, because number one, we're both older, and he's a great guy. And like I said, I don't need to destroy him. I'm trying to be technical, but he gives me a lot of trouble because he's short and I can't like grab him. It's like he sneaks under me, like he plays a very awesome half guard game. And Jamie gave me like always coming up, like, as far as like a style fight. Now, eventually I can get used, like, if I get past and I get on top of him in the cycle, that's the fight, right? But the reality is, like, gives me a lot of trouble. And I say sometimes, like, I fight heavyweights. I actually find other heavyweights a bit easier because most heavyweights aren't very diverse. So if you put them on their back, I mean, they can hold you there for a while. But the reality is, it's like there isn't a lot of versatility in heavyweights. So where now the generation coming up, there's a lot of guard player heavyweights, which is so cool. It's cool. It's like, and those guys, what do you downplay them because they're heavier? It's like, oh, it's easier for you. It's not, man. When you're on your back, gravity works against you. It's a lot harder. I just think, yeah, I think the big thing is like, you should encourage you guys to play to their attributes and don't rely on your attributes, but you should always guide them down the path that seems natural. Yeah. So like the natural path. Yeah. Cool.
That's it. That's a good way to finish it, guys. So awesome chat. Hopefully that helps any of the coaches coaching the big athlete. So thanks so much, Jez. Anything you want to quickly plug before we shoot off?
Awesome. At this point, I'm pretty excited. We're going to be running our, I think, 5th quintet, which is a round robin quintet with teams from different gyms. That'll be coming up. I'm aiming for May, June. I would love to get some people on board to watch that. I think it's the most exciting way to see jiu-jitsu.
Should run that at Fusion, I reckon. That'd be sick. Like it was team versus team at something with like production value of Fusion. That'd be cool.
I think the big thing is, like, I like the round robin element, and that might be a bit hard as far as like time frame. So if you do a Fusion event, if you have a one-off like super, like a team versus team, it would be amazing. The reason I love it is because you're getting you don't know who you're fighting, so the format. But keep an eye out on social media. Looking at running another quintet. These are super huge successful events because you're getting a combination of white belts fighting black belts, heavyweights fighting lightweights, explosive guys versus like dense guys. Like, you're getting a real diverse skill level, and the stories that come out of the day are always amazing. And it's a really fun event. So again, guys, thank you so much for having me. Good luck with the rest of the podcast, and hope to be on again in the near future.
Boom. Awesome. We'll see everyone on the next one.
See you guys.